Just a couple housekeeping items. Welcome to, let's see, got it. Welcome to QuickBooks Advanced Training. We will be sending you a copy of the PowerPoint and a recording of this webinar will be available on our website. And we'll pause after each section to see if there's any questions. But if you do have any questions, just we'll be kind of monitoring the chat and the questions portion of Zoom. So, and lastly, there'll be a survey that you should get sometime that so I think it's 4 questions that you can give us an idea of how we can make this any better. So with that, my name is Ed Cook, and I am a SCORE volunteer here in Canton. For those of you that have not heard this before, SCORE is a national nonprofit that began back in 1964. I think I was graduated from grade school that year. And we currently have over 225 chapters and over 11,000 volunteers like myself. We're funded by the Stark Community Foundation, the Hoover Foundation, the Greater Canton Chamber of Commerce, and we are a resource partner with the SBA. So besides sponsoring educational workshops like this, we counsel small businesses, and that's really what we're about. Our counseling is free and confidential. So if you want to start a business or you have a business that you're struggling with, we can probably help with that. Locally, we have about 47 counselors, and they each have a very unique business skill set. They come to us with backgrounds in accounting or marketing or product supply. Let's see. We have an office that's located in the Jackson Township Administrative Building in Jackson Township, but we'll meet you, wherever it's convenient for you. We can do this by in person or via email or a phone call. So you can see our contact information on the screen now. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Annie. Annie, you're good to go here. I don't know if you want to change your. Looks like we have a different view of the PowerPoint. So
Oh, you mean like on the web-based platform?
yeah, like we're seeing it's not a full screen, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yep, nope, that's okay. It's because it's through the internet today, because I obviously am going to be working in QuickBooks Online. So we'll be in the second tab over. So that's
Right.
why you see it that way. Gwen, I had somebody message in the chat about wanting the PowerPoints. Are you gonna drop those? I sent them over to you this morning.
Yes, I will be doing that as soon as possible. Yes.
Okay, no problem. So Julie, she'll get those up for you guys. So today we're going to talk about the expert side of QuickBooks. So this has some additional bells and whistles that some of you may use, some of you may not use. We're going to talk about things that vary based on industries. So I'm going to try to be, consistent with talking about certain things. We're going to talk about some editing of items that will change as your business goes on and on. We're going to briefly talk about sub-accounts, why we use them, what they're for, editing transactions. There's about 7, 8, 9 different ways to do that inside of QuickBooks on different levels, obviously. Contractors, we're going to talk about, and then obviously the contractor portal also has a payroll portal. We won't spend a ton of time on the payroll because obviously we don't have the payroll subscription. But you will be able to at least see some of it. And obviously the payroll stuff functions pretty similar to the contract wizards. The only difference is then it's filing all the taxes that go along with it. We're going to talk about voiding versus deleting and what the difference is and why you do one over the other. We're going to look at budgets, some miscellaneous tools inside of here, journal entries. I know there were some questions about receipts last class, so we're going to talk about receipts, the mobile app, how that kind of plays into what you're doing with the internet portal, the sales tax portal, which has updated again since the last time we talked, and then reoccurring transactions, all the different ways you could do it, how you set them up, where you edit them, and all that kind of stuff. So some of this stuff is more so for us to just learn additional features that QuickBooks enters. Some of this you're going to use on a regular basis. Some of this you might not. Okay. So for project costing is something that's usually included in the highest package. So let's go to QuickBooks Online and get logged into our account here. And we'll go to sign in. Having trouble connecting. Please try again. Uh-oh. Let's try a different way to get into it. There it goes. Okay. And while that's loading, I'll click kind of back over here. So project costing is not necessarily in the subscription that we are working with now. It's in the next level subscription. Usually project costing is used for specific industries and big projects, undertakings such like that. Contractors do a lot of project costing to make sure that they're sending out proper estimates. Their team is staying in with proper labor. Nonprofits would be another one that could do project costing, depending on if they're running a campaign for certain things and have to monitor that stuff. If you're doing a big build out for a new location or anything like that, that would be something you want to project cost as well to make sure that you're staying within whatever your budgets are that you're trying to work with. So you won't be able to see some of these features inside of the middle of the road QuickBooks, which we are part of. So I attached the best screenshots as we can so you guys can kind of see step by step how it goes. But over on our left-hand side where we have our big black thick bar that we always have, you will have a go to projects. Projects will be an option there, whether it's under where you click and there's additional wizards that pop up, which if QuickBooks would load, I'd be happy to show you that. Or if it's just in the total list on the black bar. Okay, you'll see that it says projects, so you want to go to projects. And then because there's no projects created unless you've already started to use this feature, then it's going to automatically prompt you to create a project. Okay. And then once you type in new project, start creating it, you'll see over here, it gives you additional information for like the project name. You can attach it to a customer and then any additional notes. Okay. And then you obviously want to save the start of this project. And once you hit save, then it gives you all the additional features inside of the project that will allow you to tie labor to it, expenses, bills, those types of things. So if you look down on this screen, then once you've hit saved, this is your home screen for that project. Okay. And you'll see that you'll have it's basically like a dashboard for that project. So it's going to tell you if it brought income versus expenses, and then all the different areas inside the project that you're going to work with. Okay. And then again, down here, summarizing some of the stuff up here, your income, your cost, and it's going to have hours versus expenses and bills, and then total profit on the project. Okay. Now, if you click on any of the above, like estimates, invoice, expense, bills, you're going to then get another screen to start tracking it. Okay. So you click on enter a bill and it's going to take you to a screen that looks like the bill. The only difference is from the screen that we saw about looking like a bill is that now it's going to have you a drop down to select that project to make sure that that bill gets tied to that project. The one thing QuickBooks does not do is that if you want to use the project costing, it doesn't require you to have to use it in order to enter the transaction. So it's not going to give you a warning that you didn't select a project on a bill. So if you then go into the project and you didn't properly assign a bill to that project, your numbers in the project might be off. And so you definitely have to kind of pay attention to that and make sure that you're doing it in the right fashion and tying it appropriately. Not every bill you get is going to go to that project potentially either. Not every hour your employees are working are going to go to that project either. So you definitely want to pay attention to that. Okay. When it comes to track your time, this is for hours for payroll or contractors. If you're paying contractors hourly, those types of things. You would click your track your time button and it's going to prompt you to then enter in you've already got the payroll portal set up, enter in hours for the people that are already there. If you don't have it set up, then it'll tell you to create an employee or create a contractor by name and then be able to tie to hours there. The track your time inside the project costing here will actually automatically tie it to this project so that then if you go in and actually run payroll in QuickBooks or have contractors on the side of pay over there, it doesn't need to be prompted to tie into this project. It's separate technically. So you have to enter the times basically in two spots, one side to actually pay them and then this side to track it on the project. Okay. And then you get your reports. So you're going to get profitability, you're going to get costs by employee and vendor, and then you're going to get unbilled time and expense. So obviously there's things that might come up, additional material needed or a price change on material that wasn't quoted originally and could be something that was unexplained or unbudgeted for. So that would be one that you're going to see. And then these will be the three reports that you use off of. Now, if you go back up here to this one, in this is your activities that you can toggle from. These are also all clickable down here, but project reports would be where you would click to then find the reports. Try to refresh this since that's not looking. Any questions about why you would use project costing? Obviously, like I said, it's in the highest level of QuickBooks, so some of you guys might not have access to it. Or any reasons, why you would think that you could do, well, I guess that wouldn't really matter. Any questions about project costing? Let's just leave it at that, and then you guys can go from there if there are. Okay, perfect. And let me see if I can I'm gonna try one other way to get QuickBooks to load, since they seem to be having a error this morning. If you can't get QuickBooks to load, sometimes if you do an incognito window, you can get QuickBooks to load. I don't know why. It's just a quick trick that I've learned over the time. Let's see here. If you're using the incognito window, obviously a lot of times your credentials, if you save them, aren't usually saved anymore. So you do still have to know your credentials, and you might get prompted for a password or a code. Look at that, it works. So as I was saying, this is where you'll see the projects right here. And then start a project because we don't have one. Here's the next screen. I'm going to put and training for us. And I'm going to say this project runs all year. Don't need any notes. Oh, they've even added an attachment feature. You can attach your receipts inside of here, which is exciting. So there's your normal options here with your reports, time, activity, and transactions. You can see this screen looks the same. Like I told you, these are clickable. And it looks expense screen. like we've looked at before. And then obviously project reports. Here are the 3 reports I told you about. You can view them. We didn't enter anything. You can see a list of the transactions once you have stuff in here too. And then the time activity like we talked about. Okay. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about then, since now QuickBooks is working, is now we're going to talk about editing accounts. Okay. So inside of QuickBooks, you have items, which are the things that go on your invoice. You have a chart of accounts. You have journal entries that you could enter. You have reoccurring transactions you could enter, you can edit. You have actual just things inside of the general ledger you can edit. Okay, we're going to kind of talk about all of those things. All right. So to do a majority of them, if you go inside of transactions here, it brings us to our account here. Okay. So if you go to chart of accounts, this is the list of the stuff that we're categorizing and where things go. Okay. And again, if you click this little down arrow, you can click edit. Then this would edit any type of account that you have listed here. You could change the name. You could add account numbers. Like I usually like to add the last 4 of a bank account or last 4 of a credit card, because then if somebody else gets inside of my QuickBooks, they don't tie the wrong account to the wrong account, because everything just says Citizens Bank. It says Citizens Bank -123. And so then they know exactly which account to make sure they pull the proper statements and make sure everything's entered in the proper accounts. Okay. And then, so you might want to do that. Like right now we just have Huntington. So I could edit this name for training purposes to be what we're talking about. The Huntington 123. And then you'll see my update is obviously there instantaneously. Okay. That's edit 1. Then if we go back to bank transactions and we go into the bank register, so all the things that we've categorized are sitting inside of the bank register, whether it's a credit card or a bank account, doesn't matter. Okay. You can toggle up here. If you need to edit one of these, you can click on it and click edit. And it's going to bring up the transaction. And it could be that you decided that you went to Circle K, but you also got a coffee, not just a flat $50 in gas. So say the coffee was 99 cents and this should be 49.01. So it still equals 50. We needed to make that edit, and then you can hit save and close.
Hey, Ann, we're not seeing that. We're not seeing what you're doing. We're looking at page looks like page 9 of your PowerPoint.
Well, all right, hold on 1 second here. Entire screen. That's what I want to share. Can you see it now?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so sorry about that. So let me backtrack a little bit then, since I did not realize you could not see that. We'll go backwards. So under, like I told you, in your black bar, projects, okay, then you would go and see that we started a project, but you could click new project and type in the next thing for you and tie it to a customer. And then you can put, I wanted to put that as 24. And then it brings you to your next screen, which has, like I showed you, the income versus cost and profit, your navigation bar here. Again, all this stuff is clickable. And obviously this part, because we don't have the payroll set up, the timing doesn't work for what you're trying to do in that realm. And then obviously inside of here, you can click on a project to get back into it if you come out of the project. And the expense category will take you to what looks like a bill. And then invoice, it takes you to look what is your normal invoice screen if you were creating an invoice. Okay. So then for editing, we want to go to transactions up here and your chart of accounts. You can edit any of these like we talked about. I obviously made the edit that you guys didn't see where I changed Huntington to have the last 3 or 4 of the account number so that you know that it's the right one. We could do the same thing here for the city card. We want to edit this. So down arrow, edit. Then I'm going to say 2582, just make up a number there. and then that change is done instantly. And we had set the capital one up properly where it had the account number on it originally. But you can make those edits. Obviously, again, you can make it inactive if it's something you're not going to use, or something that your product or service changes. You obviously can do that. The other way we want to edit things is if you go back into banking and you go to the bank register inside of here, you can edit. These are the transactions that are actually categorized. So we can edit these. You can edit them for random reasons. Like, for example, say this GoDaddy for $10.43 isn't all advertising. Maybe you have you want some of it to go to subscription too. So you can hit edit. And then say dues and subscriptions. And technically inside of QuickBooks Online, you can hit like a divide key and it'll actually do the math for you. And obviously you still want to make sure that it totals out to be the same dollar amount as it was before. And then you can hit save and close. Oh, and I was off. So see how it warned me that I was off a penny. So I'm going to hit cancel because I don't want to change the amount. I'm going to change that down a penny so that it reflects that. And then it lets it go, it lets me change that. So now instead of just saying one category, it says split because we edited it. Okay. You can also edit something to delete it. Okay. So you could also, let's hit delete on this Acme. It's going to warn me that it was downloaded. Are you sure you want to delete it? The answer is yes.
Breaking.
Deleting it is going to take it out of this screen.
Your audio
yeah.
is breaking up a little bit.
Okay, hold on a sec. Let me see. Let me see if I shift in my office a little bit, if that helps. Is that better?
I think so, yes.
Okay. So if you delete it out of here and it's a transaction that gives you that warning that it was downloaded from the bank, you're not deleting it completely out of QuickBooks. You're basically putting it back in your transaction tab and putting it back in here. So see how it's right here, 52 from February. So it put you back into the for review instead of being in the categorized tab. When it's in the categorized tab, it's showing in the ledger. Okay. Now we also need to edit our items. So our items are going to be under sales. And then let's see here. If we go under products and services, and then these are our items. So our items again are the things that go on our invoice. Okay. And inside of here, you'll see there's an edit option and you can change name, you can change price if something fluctuates there, you can change the account that it's tying to for income. And you can even change what the description is. You obviously can add new in there, which we've talked about already, but obviously, editing, those are items you can edit. Also inside of invoices, you can edit. So we have a couple invoices we created. Once they're marked paid, you can still hit edit. It's going to give you a lot of warnings when you're doing that. Usually you're not going to edit things that are paid. You're only going to edit things that aren't paid. So if you click edit, it's going to open the invoice for you. And then you can add additional services or change a price, or do more customization if we need to, pending what you're trying to do. And you remember you have the tool up here to do customization as well. Okay. Now, let's see here. When you get inside of invoices or you get inside of journal entries or even bills, you'll see there's this little clock here. If you click on that, it's going to bring up the things that you've recently been working on in that specific area. So for example, these are the invoices we've created through the course of the training. So they populate because that's the only activity we've done in here. If you create invoices on a regular basis, then you might have more detail in here, but it's a way to quick jump between invoices. You can't toggle back and forth, meaning forward, backwards, but you can see at least a few here. I know that was a question last time. Quick cheat sheet thing for you there is that at least if you click on the icon there, you can see some of the past history. Okay. Underneath this new item here, we would go to journal entries. Again, if you click up here, any additional information for journal entries is going to be there. Again, let's create a journal entry really quick just because we haven't. So we're going to do Huntington account and we're going to do cost of goods sold. Let's do that. So we want to credit cost of goods sold so that that account gets bigger. And we want to debit the bank account because we spent money. Okay. So I'm going to do, let's do 500 or 5,000 just to make it easy. A big round number that's going to stick out. Okay. So you can hit save. Now you're going to see that that journal entry is going to show. Okay. Now, if I need to edit this journal entry, I click on it and I can make any adjustments inside of here because it opens back up. I can copy, delete, see the audit history, those types of things. You also can go in from here to journal entries. And if you click out of that one, I want to see my journal entry list. There's a way to see the list. View more, and then you can see the list here. Or then again, you click on it to edit it. Okay. So then the journal entry now, if you go back over to your transactions and we go to our chart of accounts and we view our register here, you'll see there's the 5,000 that we put in. And if we go back to reports would be where you would see the other side of it, your profit and loss report. Okay. But you can see everything you're doing is tying into all these other accounts, right? So that's pretty much everything that we would edit inside of QuickBooks on a regular basis. You might edit an estimate. It's kind of done the same way as you would for an invoice. Obviously, just make sure you're in the estimate tab. Again, your edit button's off to the side. Okay. But editing it is either making corrections, adjusting account names, changing pricing for items so that everything in QuickBooks stays consistent to make your life with using it a lot easier.
Hey, Ann,
Yes.
I don't know if you, looks like Diane has a couple questions and
No,
I'm
I
not
was just
sure.
going to look at questions here.
Okay. Okay. All right. Fine.
No problem. See here. How do I add business savings account? It says the same login as my checking account, but I do not want QuickBooks. I do not same login as my checking, but QuickBooks did not seem to want to add it as an account. Diane, in your bank login, is it coming up as if that savings account is a CD or is it actually a bank account that's a savings account? Okay. So you should be able to do it from your banking tab. So if we're in transactions here, under your link account, when you go through it, it should still show up. Even if it's a money market, usually they show up and you just have to select it. And then I don't think QuickBooks is going to give you an option to name it a savings account, or it's just going to say it's a bank account inside of QuickBooks, but you could say savings bank on the name of it. If it didn't let you do it, just doing it that way, maybe it's something you and I need to work through individually. Maybe there's a settings on the inside of the bank that are prohibiting it from syncing. As far as if you add CDs later, the CDs don't sync inside of here at all. The CDs are investments, so you would just have to do manual entry for that to say, I took X amount of money out of the bank account to buy a CD. Personal or business use is your preference, obviously. And then we would then have to just track it once you cash that CD in. Diane, if you can't get the savings account to come through, reach out to me and we'll work through that. Because it definitely shouldn't be giving you problems on that type of account. Any other questions about editing accounts? Okay. So we're going to shift down then to sub-accounts here. So why would we create a sub-account? We would want to create a sub-account for transactions that you want to track that can be merged into other items. So a good example of this would be like utilities. I personally like to track my trash utility bill and my internet bill, because once I go out of contract with my trash provider, they tend to spike my bill. And internet, for some reason, every year, unless you're locked into a contract, tends to be more and more expensive. So I like to see when that transaction changes. But you could break up even more so if you pay electric, gas, you could break up those bills too to be separate. If telephone should always be separate. So your main account would say utilities, and then all your sub accounts would be listed below, which would be the things we're going to set up. Okay. So to do that, we would go into our chart of accounts. And I always try to search first because I know we have a utilities category right here. Okay. But now I want to see if we have a telephone. We don't. And then let's see if we have internet. That's interest. So we don't have internet. Let's make sure we don't have gas. You kind of search and see what accounts you've already created, right? Especially if you're not always the person doing it. So it looks like we need to create them. So what we'll do then is go ahead and click, scroll up and click new. Maybe move this out of our way. So under here, I want to say telephone. And then this is going to be an expense account. And it's under utilities. Make it a sub account. There's your little key right there to do that. And what that does is then you'll see if I hit save. Wants me to select utilities again. So see how it says utilities and then telephone is indented. That's how it's going to look on your profit and loss. Okay. So we'll hit save and then we're going to create another one. Oh, I'm going to say trash. And again, this is an expense. And utility. And I need to make that a sub account of utilities again. And if you scroll down, now you'll see there's 2 accounts there and you'll hit save. Okay. Now, if you look up utilities here, let's see here. I scroll down alphabetically and look at utilities. You'll see here on your list, they're indented too. Okay. You could use sub accounts for payroll. You could say payroll, payroll cost, wages, tax, and then company taxes, FUTA, SUTA. Those could all be sub accounts. Okay. Cost of goods sold could have sub accounts. It could be material and supplies versus labor versus anything else you might need, cleaning, those types of things, depending what your industry is. Okay. Things you would not probably use sub accounts for are one-off items. So office supplies, I don't need you to split up office supplies into anything major, right? You're already going to have office equipment in its own bucket, furniture's in its own bucket. So office supplies could just be everything else, right? Workers' comp, odds are you're probably not going to split that account. Workers' comp is the insurance you're paying. So you're just going to make that payment. You could split it if you have different levels of employees because there's different rates on workers' comp, but is it necessary? Maybe not. And if you're splitting it, you're probably doing that inside of payroll somewhere, not necessarily on your chart of accounts here. Okay. Repairs and maintenance you could split because you could have vehicle repairs and maintenance. You could have office repairs and maintenance. You could have equipment repairs and maintenance. That would be another one to have. Vehicle expenses, you might want like vehicle repair and maintenance, vehicle insurance versus vehicle gas. Those would be options there. So there's a lot of it. The sub accounts create the detail that you personally or you and a business coach or you and a mentor want to see. That's what it does. These accounts here that based on the detail that you want to see do not always tie to what shows on the tax return. The numbers are there, it's the buckets are different. So I know last class somebody brought up like, can I just do it to match the Schedule C? You absolutely can if you don't care to see additional details on things. That's totally fine and up to you. Because at the end of the day, it has to go match the tax form anyways. But if you're trying to critique expenses, make sure project costing is done properly, you're pricing things appropriately, making money, doing all these things, some of this detail might be necessary for you based on your industry. Like I told you guys in the past, I have 5 income buckets. Okay. I have consulting income, I have training income, I have payroll income, I have taxes income, and I have miscellaneous income. Okay. So I like to track those areas really because I pay for payroll costs. So I need to make sure that I'm making enough to cover that cost, right? Taxes I pay for a software, need to make sure that I'm making enough based on the clientele for that. So I have some of that detail for me so that I can see the different areas of my business, how diverse are my sales, and can work through some of those types of things. Again, they're all sub accounts of income. It says income and then it lists all my different accounts of my income. So it's a preference on what you guys want to see. Do we have any questions about the sub accounts? You would only create sub accounts for your chart of accounts. You don't do it with any of the items that go on invoices or estimates. It's only done in this area here. And it's to make your profit and loss and your balance sheet look with the detail that you want to see. Okay, so no questions there. So then we're going to keep moving. So let's talk about contractors. Okay, so over on this side, you'll see there's a little payroll button here. You have employees and then you have contractors. We're going to click on contractors. Oh, did we get a question? Oh, good, Diane. I'm glad you got it to sync. Okay. So people often ask, what's the difference between a contractor and an employee? Okay. There's a lot of difference here based on liability for you, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it. I will tell you when we talk about contractors, contractors are people that do work for you but are not actually employed by you. Okay. Meaning they work when they want, they tell you what you're going to pay them. They work at their leisure. You don't control their schedule. They don't have to ask you for time off, those types of things. Usually they're like me. They run their own business, they're doing their own thing, and then they're just doing one piece of what you need for your business. Could be marketing, could be this, could be that, right? So the good thing about QuickBooks in this world for contractors is that obviously anybody that you pay more than $600 in a calendar year is due to be issued a tax document at the end of the year to make sure that you can then deduct the expense that you paid them and they have to claim the income for being paid. Okay. That's the IRS's way of knowing that somebody was paid that isn't on payroll. Okay. So to add a contractor, because we have not done this, you'll do this. So I'm going to add myself here. Because I want to show you guys email we get. Because QuickBooks Online has made it so that you don't have to do a ton of work when it comes to contractors, and it will house the information for you. And it's sending me a security code. So let me pick up my phone to get the security code here. Let's see here. 623900. Okay, did it not add us? Oh, all right, let's try again. There it goes. Okay. So you can direct pay a contractor inside of QuickBooks. There's a fee associated with it. It's going to tell you that it's waiting for my information. Okay. It's going to show me my payment history and then we'll show you the documentations, which is that I have not filled out this form yet because we just sent the email, right? So you're supposed to keep a copy of the W-9 form for anybody that you're paying as a contractor. Luckily for you is that QuickBooks has the ability to email it, or you can manually upload it if you don't want to do the email feature. There are people that don't, or don't have emails, depending your industry and who you're working with. But if you do, then QuickBooks will house this information. So if anybody ever came in and said, I need this information, boom, it's in here, right here. You don't have to worry about it. You've got it all. Okay. If you don't use QuickBooks for that, then obviously you need a folder for your contractors to keep W-9s in them so that at the end of the year, you can give it to your accountant for tax purposes. Okay. So let's pull up my email then to see what our email looked like that your contractors would get, obviously, if you had sent them an email. And I would think by now I've got the email. If I do, it definitely came in my phone. So let's see if it's okay. So here is the email. So my company's name obviously wants to do the W-9 info. So I can click enter info here and go through their wizard. Apparently it doesn't like that screen right now. Let's see if we can get it to do it. Let me copy the hyperlink back into Chrome. Paste the hyperlink. Oh, that did not work. Okay, well, I'm not sure why that wouldn't work. Usually it gives you the form. I'll pull up just the form then so that I can show you what it looks like if you have never seen a W-9 before. It pulls up this form. A W-9 is very basic, okay? It has you fill out the name as an individual, a business name, what type of entity you are, individual, corporation, S corp, partnership, your address, and then either a social, an EIN, and a signature. That's it. That's the information you need for a contractor. Because all you're going to do is issue a document that you mail to them at the end of the year or email to them that has the EIN or social, and then obviously you need their address to be able to send them the document, okay? So this would be the form that would be then stuck in here. Instead of saying waiting for information, it would be loaded here, and you could click on it and be able to see the form, okay? Payments, this would be a list of all the payments. Now, if you don't use the direct pay and you just have where you have contractors that you have already paid for the year, because we're 4 months in the year, right? You can go in just under your transactions here, bank transactions, and then down here, say, let's see if I can find one that might qualify here. So here's Lakeview Market. If I click on it, okay, as long as I create this customer as Lakeview Market, and Lakeview Market was set up to be, well, actually, you know, I'll just call it, I'll make it me so that you guys can see it. Let's see. If I name it as me, okay, you'll see I start to populate as a vendor now. And if I hit add, then underneath our contractors, you will see under contractors here, the payment populates under here. So even if you're not paying them through the contractor portal, the screen on QuickBooks, and they are clearing the bank account because you cut them physical checks, as long as you categorize it to the vendor, to the contractor that is a vendor inside of QuickBooks, you then would be able to see them still in this list. And the data that you would need to pull to create 1099s at the end of the year will still be accurate because you tied that expense to this person. Okay? Does that make sense for everybody? Okay. And then, like I said, detail here, it's awaiting everything, but this would fill out, and then obviously you can make any edits. If somebody moves, you can edit that. If they need to update because they decided to get a business or register for an EIN, then you can make those updates as well. I recommend keeping the history. Kuyana, do you have a question? Okay, perfect. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about the payroll side of it. So employees, as you can see, you have your navigation wizard up here as well. And let's see what'll load on our end for us. So as you can see, because we don't have it, it's going to prompt us to try to sign up. It's going to tell you the different versions, what it's got inside of it. Now, I will tell you that it's $22 a month plus $6 per employee or contractor per month. So 22 is just the base fee. Then you also pay an additional dollar amount based on whoever or how many you have, okay? And then this can allow you to have these features, right? The same thing goes over here. This one's at $8 per employee. So don't be like, oh, it's only $22.50 a month. Yeah, it is. But then if you have 20 or 30 employees, then add another $6 times 20 or 30. The payroll portal here can get expensive. The desktop payroll is expensive too. It's like $500 a year. It's not cheap, right? A payroll's not cheap to run. It's not cheap to manage and everything like that. The big thing is understanding what your payroll service is doing so that you know to go through and make sure that all the reports are filed properly. Okay. Inside of here, obviously, if you had set up a payroll thing, it's going to prompt you to do the same type of information as a contractor, where you can set up the individual. So I think actually if I get down to nope, it doesn't show me there. But you can load the same type of forms and invite employees to QuickBooks as well. But what the invite for them versus contractors is going to show, they'll have pay stubs on there. They're going to be able to do their time tracking if you have that set up, and those types of things. So there's a couple different different items that go into the employee side. But yep, so until you pick a package, you can't really do much in the payroll module. The payroll documents you will need on employees is an I-9, a W-4, direct deposit information, a copy of their driver's license or another form of ID to validate their I-9. And then obviously with employees, you have to do the new hire report and some of those things. So that would be some of the stuff you would look and see if they did down here inside the packages. Okay. QuickBooks also then does some workers' comp. Workers' comp obviously ties into payroll. So you can see if workers' comp charges different percentages and different rates based on injury in your industry or labor intensity of your industry. So obviously as an office person, you're gonna pay a lot less than somebody who's out in the field doing construction or roofing or concrete. So you can quote and see if they have a better rate than what you get just through workers' comp. Again, I personally just manage everything through workers' comp, but this is a new offering that QuickBooks has for you. So Quiana, when it comes to investments and benefit deductions on payroll, when you actually have the payroll set up, there is a way to manage like the payroll items that would populate here. And then you could go in and set up any deductions, employer matching, that type of thing. The customization is not the simplest. Meaning like if you guys fund an HSA for them, the employees don't actually have a deduction on it. There's no way to put that in QuickBooks. Payroll for the online version. You can obviously do it in desktop. I've had people transfer the data over from desktop into online, and what transfers is set up properly, but they can't set up additional items or link new employees into those items. So it's very basic on that, but you are able to enter deductions inside of the payroll thing. Sadly, it's Quiana, if you have the payroll portal and when we meet personally, we can go over that because again, it's not something that we necessarily teach here because the payroll portal isn't something that I use on a regular basis here. I know that Canton SCORE is looking for somebody to teach this module. My husband is actually the payroll pro. We just haven't had a chance to decipher that and be able to do it from there. But as more people are moving from desktop to online, I think this is something that's going to need to be taught so people can do it properly. Perfect. Any other questions about contractors or briefly talking about employees, any of the documents, anything like that? Okay. So let me pull up this. So now we're going to talk about voiding and deleting. Okay. So when you void something, the data stays inside of QuickBooks. It just zeroes the dollar amount. When you delete something, depending what you're deleting, and I'll show you the difference, it either goes back in the for review tab on the transaction screen where it's syncing, or is completely gone. Okay. So if you delete a journal entry, it's completely gone. If you void it, the detail's there, but it's just zeroed. Okay. It really, this comes into play with invoices. So a lot of times, maybe there's an invoice mistake, or you don't end up getting the job, or somebody cancels last minute, and you need to void out that income because you're not actually going to make it, right? Well, I still want to know that I bid the job and the work that I promised, but I just want to take the dollar amount off of it. So I would void that. Okay, so let's look at this. So if we go into sales to do invoices first, and click on invoice. So if I click on edit, down at the bottom here where it says more, you have void or delete. Okay. If I hit void, it says, are you sure you want to void this transaction? I'm going to hit yes, void. Transaction's been voided. Okay. So the transaction is still listed here. It just says voided. And if I hit edit, the product or service that I selected is still here. It just has no dollar amount and then tells me the status was voided. Okay. For this Jeff D, if I click edit and I click more and I click delete, are you sure you want to delete this? I said, yes. Now that doesn't even exist. It's not in here at all. Jeff D is not an active customer. There's no history, no nothing, right? So for something like this, I would probably prefer to void so that I can keep the detail versus I have no recollection of that Jeff D invoice that we deleted, okay? And in 5 hours, I won't even remember what the dollar amount was, which is never a good feeling. So that's one option for voiding and deleting. Again, if we go up here under journal entries, I'll move this down a little bit. Our little snippet cheater here. And then again, it's under more, and you have the option to delete. Okay. To void in journal entries, you click reverse. Which what would do is that you have one journal entry in that had Huntington and cost of goods, and we're reversing it to zero it out. Okay. I don't want to save this. Okay. If we go into our transactions, and I'm going to go into our bank register first, and I'm going to change this account to Huntington because we manually entered these transactions in Huntington. So if I go here and I go delete, that transaction is gone. The reason for that is because if I go back to transactions, I don't have Huntington linked here. So that check that I wrote, that I don't know, if I needed it or not, based on, quote unquote training purposes, I deleted it, right? It's gone. It's totally deleted out of QuickBooks. It's not sitting in a queue anywhere. Okay. Where if I go into Capital One and I go to register, and I'm going to click on Arby's and I'm going to click delete. This transaction was downloaded. Sure. I still want to delete it. Okay. So then if I go back into my bank register, that Arby's transaction is right here where I deleted it. The only way to delete them permanently then out of this screen is to click here and click exclude. So it's really important that if you delete something that's a manual entry, it's totally gone. If you're deleting something that's downloaded in here, it's not completely gone. And so you'll drive yourself crazy if you go through and you're like, oh my gosh, I have all these duplicate transactions. Let me delete them all. Well, they all populate here. So then if you don't exclude them off of this screen right away, you might forget. And then when you go to do categorizing again, you're going to recategorize everything you just deleted and make yourself crazy, right? Which would not be fun. Looks like we have a couple questions. Only if it's a transaction that's synced can you go back and get it later. If you delete it, and it's something that you manually entered, you cannot get it back, sadly. And then for the things that you're like, let me go into, let's see if I can see it here. If we go into, let's go back here, bank transactions, and I go into a register here and say I want to do, I don't think we reconciled Huntington. Sometimes if you delete something that's permanently deleted that wasn't supposed to be permanently deleted, down here between where it says Huntington and add your following information, it'll say a transaction was deleted. And sometimes if you click on that, that would be a way to retrieve that transaction. But it's rare that it's there for a manually entered transaction. It will be there for anything that's bank synced, but it's very rare it would be there for a manually transaction. Okay. Any questions about voiding versus deleting? Okay. I'm going to have us take a short 10-minute break now, and then we're going to dive back in and we'll take another 10-minute break at the next hour mark. So right now it is 9:58. Let's come back in at 10:08 and we'll keep diving through some of this stuff because obviously there's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of nitty-gritty with this. So I want to make sure that you guys have time to add any questions in the chat over the course of the next 10 minutes. I'll start with that. But here's your bathroom break for the first break of the session. Me.
Oh,
That was why I had to take a little break. I was going to have a little bit of a cough attack and I didn't want to do it on the video.
good idea. Good idea.
Yeah, my voice is hanging in there, but it's very raspy. I don't feel bad. I just like maybe more like allergy season change sinus stuff
Yeah.
going on for
Oh,
me.
yeah. Yeah.
So as long as I feel okay, I'm all right.
Yeah.
But yes, everybody else, husband's back, kids are back. We're good. We
Good.
survived it. It was a
Good.
rough 2 weeks, but
Yep. Good. Glad to hear it.
thank you for asking. I appreciate that. Okay, guys, any questions about the stuff we've covered so far? I'm going to minimize this, pull back up our PowerPoint here. So we can go back to our little outline sheet. So far we've covered the project costing, the editing accounts, editing transactions, sub-accounts, contractors, and then voiding. So we're about halfway through. Okay, so now we're going to talk about budget. Budget again kind of plays in the project costing that you have access to it usually in your first 30-day trial, but then obviously it's usually more of something that's offered in the next level QuickBooks. Although I will tell you that the budgeting tool is something that they're really working to get access to at our QuickBooks because people are really requesting it. Budgeting a lot of times I see in the nonprofit world more than I see in just everybody day to day. We'd love to say we're all really good business owners and we all do budgets. But I would venture to bet more of us probably don't than we do. Okay. So the budget tool inside of QuickBooks is really nice because it will actually show you what you can put in the budget. You can copy it, you can paste it. You can also do it by month, or you can have it just do by annual total, and then it will do the math for you by month. So we're going to kind of go through some of those. So let's take a peek and see if with our trial, we have our little budget tool. So again, our black navigation bar, our main flow here, we have budget. And then obviously we have not done budget. So if you've not used budget before, it's going to come up. And then from this screen, obviously you can import a budget if you already have one. Again, if you hit import, it's going to come from an Excel document. Or you can create a budget. We're going to go the create route. So you can tell it your fiscal year. Now, if you in initial setup had set up your QuickBooks to be fiscal year and it's mid-year to mid-year or through September, you know, that type of thing. Whatever you set it up to be is going to be the initial drop-down option. And again, you can have multiple years. You can go future, you can go backwards. Okay. You can pre-fill data based on things that you had going on right now or previous years. And then obviously you have custom budget stuff. So we're going to go ahead and hit next. And this is going to bring up then obviously what would look like our Excel document. So one downfall of the detail that we have inside of our QuickBooks chart of accounts, because that is all the stuff that's listed here is our chart of accounts, okay, is that all those accounts are going to be listed. So if we don't use every one of those accounts in our budget, then we're going to have a lot of empty boxes across here, okay? So as you see, there's so you'll see here, there's the totals, and then you can go by month. So if I did a total, say I made this $50,000 for the year, okay, it's going to divide it up automatically for me, okay? If I wanted to not do a total, I could say this month we were going to do 5,000. This month we do 4. This month we do 6. April's our big month, so we do 7,500. And you can see here that this number is adjusting based on the changes I'm making throughout these numbers, right? Same goes for anything that you do. And again, if you start here, you're like, okay, I don't have any of this type of income for 3 months, and at month 3 we have 6,000. Boom, now it's got 6,000 here. Okay, you can do it by quarter. You can do it by year. Okay, you have your options. If you put your actuals in, you'll see, because we've categorized some things, that we actually have numbers in here versus what we budgeted. Okay, so as you're doing it, it makes it really easy if you have a report where you're maybe you have a business coach, or again for a nonprofit, you're playing around with budgeting and you need to tell everybody at the board meeting where you are against the budget. This feature is phenomenal for that. And then you can export it. And it comes down into an Excel sheet. So again, you can make any adjustments you would need to in order to format it properly, those types of things, okay? You can shrink it. So I have all these different billing icons. Individual ones. And then you can hit save. And as you see, it says it's saved successfully. And then again, from down here, you can hit close. Mind our little wizard. And then here's that budget. You can archive a budget. If you archive a budget, it hides it. If you know that your budget is going to stay the same for the most part, you just need to change a few numbers. You can duplicate the budget to make your entry a lot easier in the next round. Or if you decide, you know what, I don't want to use this budget at all, you can delete it. And obviously you can always go in and edit it as time goes. Budgets can be labor intensive at first to set up, but not labor intensive as you continue to move through it. Obviously, once you've already done all the work the first time, if your budget stays consistent, you just have to update the numbers. It gets easier and easier once you've done the initial setup. Any questions about budgets? Quiana, yes, you can. If you go into this,
The
you can click the little
dialogue.
arrow.
And I haven't been able to find, but I will find it because she did say it. But whatever she mentioned, maybe that's is in some way connected to constant contact. I'm not sure, but I want to get her exact words on that.
Gwen, you're not muted anymore. Okay, so Quiana, like we said, if you click this little arrow, you can hide it and you can print it like this, or you can download it in Excel like this, and it will only show just income. Same for here, same for here. You can do it not just on this budget tab, but also on your profit and loss. Same type of thing to make your reports less detailed. Is that what you meant, Quiana, about hiding accounts for reporting purposes? No problem. So on here, you could do the same thing on your P&L or balance sheet, but on the budget, it shows you these little arrows. So see how it shows all this detail? You can collapse it to hide it. So they only see an income number, but don't see how you're generating it. Same goes for the expenses. Yes, you use the edit button, Mary, to update the budget. But on your, if we go to our profit and loss here, go down, let's go back to report list here. Same thing here. These little arrows exist to make it less detailed for you. So if you're just trying to show somebody income, cost of goods, and total expense, you can just show them that. If you have sub accounts, so obviously we didn't use any of our sub accounts, you can also minimize your sub accounts so that you just see utility total and don't need to see all the individual detail that you created. Quiana, does that answer your question? Any other questions on budget? Why I would use it, how to get to it? Hey, Ed,
Yes, Ann.
do you have the ability to unmute Quiana? It says she doesn't have an option to speak. I'm trying to make sure I answered her question that she had above about
Maybe. Who? What's her first name?
Quiana.
Yeah, right there. Okay, allowed to talk. Okay, Kiana, go for it. You hear me?
Hello, Ann.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. Just for clarity purposes, when you first started the presentation, you stated that when you went through the chart of accounts,
Mhm.
that if we do not populate all of the fields, that basically there would just be blank, correct? And my question was, in that particular screen that you were presenting, can we hide the fields that we're not using? For instance, if I did a quarterly report or a month-to-month report, but I didn't have any expenses for that particular month, could I hide that particular chart of accounts? Especially if I'm doing a budget and comparing it with the actual, because it may vary month to month depending on really the clientele. I'm in the salon business, so we may have
Varies.
yes, ma'am.
So let's go into, so for you're doing your P&Ls, if you don't have anything in that bucket, that line item will not populate. So you will be good on that side of it. But if you're looking inside of the budget will always show it whether there's something typed in it or not. As you can see here, like we don't have things in any of these items. I'm wondering under what does hide all reference data do? Nope. Okay. I was wondering if we selected these, if we got a different option, but it doesn't look like it gives us an option. So on the budget report, inside of here, when you're building it, it looks like all this stuff is actually still going to populate. But when
Mhm.
we actually go and look at this report, yeah, it does still look like it populates some of the zero stuff, but not all of it. It doesn't look like the expense categories that you don't use are showing, but it looks like maybe the income ones are. So it
Mhm.
does look like when you actually pull the report, although in the building screen, all that data is there, when you
Mhm.
actually pull the report, it looks like it does get rid of the things that are not being used at that time.
Okay, okay. And then for instance, like the cost of goods sold, right? I might have a budget for this year. I mean, not this year, this month, right? That I spend a certain dollar amount, but I may not need to even spend that certain dollar amount for materials, right? For the next
Okay.
month because it carried over. So you're saying if I have zeros in materials, right? But I may still have the field for labor and supplies populated, that field for materials that is zeroed out, it will still carry over on the report when I do my profit and loss report.
It won't if there's nothing in it. It'll be it
Okay.
won't show the line item as if it didn't, the expense didn't exist for a 0 month, but then we'll
Okay.
populate the following month if you spend money in that bucket.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Yeah, no, not a problem. I'm glad I asked that because you had obviously a little bit more complexities to that question. And I wanted to make sure you get what you need out of the reports, or if we need to do something special, we can.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
No problem.
Am I
Okay.
mute?
No, Ed, can you mute her back up for us?
Sure will.
Perfect. Okay. Any other questions about the budget? Obviously, again, from the side tool, you can have as many as you want, import, create, go from there. The difference between a profit and loss and the budget tool, just so we can specify, is a profit and loss is showing you actual numbers. The budget's going to show you what you actually spent versus what you're budgeting to spend. I will tell you, budgeting sometimes is pretty eye-opening for people. They tend not to realize how much money they're spending. Sometimes it's usually when it comes to food. They don't realize how much money they spend out of pocket each month on food. So when you put a budget together and you show them what they actually spent versus what they thought they spent, it can be pretty eye-opening in some of those areas. Another area would be if you have a lot of dues and subscriptions, people tend, I know you see the commercials all the time about, oh, we could save you money, blah, 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 but people tend not to realize how many subscriptions they have as well. So that would be another area that it's just nice to see it. It's black and white. What you budgeted is what you thought you were spending, and what you actually spent is what the dollars that left your bank account. So it's really nice to look at that report and go, oh my gosh, I need to look at this number and make these adjustments in my business. I can save money here, that type of thing. Payroll could be another area you're monitoring. You budgeted X and you spent Y. This is really important in the restaurant industry. You don't want to be overstaffed when you're not making enough money, but you also can tell if you're understaffed, based on your payroll costs and those types of things. Okay. All right, so let's kick back to our PowerPoint. We're going to skip miscellaneous tools. We'll come back to it. We're going to talk a little bit more about journal entries. We did kind of briefly breeze over those with editing and things like that, but let's talk about it. So journal entries are things that I tell you that usually should only be done if you're trying to make an initial purchase of something. So a big initial big purchase, if you've put your own cash in, or obviously when your accountant is making adjustments at the end of the year. Sadly, some people think that journal entries should be the way you do accounting because it's easier doing one big journal entry with multiple line items than it is to go in and enter each individual transaction. Okay. Well, like we said with QuickBooks Online, the entire point of QuickBooks Online is the integration feature. Okay. The fact that you download or import the data into QuickBooks, it syncs in there and then you just categorize it. Okay. So journal entries don't sit well if you were to be audited, if you're using it for your entire premise of bookkeeping, but there are situations where journal entries are needed. Okay. So a situation that a journal entry would be needed is if you are a landscaping company and you had a piece of equipment that you disposed of, but then bought another piece of equipment. So you're going to need to do a journal entry, not only to adjust the fixed asset, that would be the piece of equipment. If you have a loan on the piece of equipment, you have to adjust that piece of it. then you have to then add the new piece of equipment. And then obviously if there's any cash overflow or that you had to pay or put a loan on, then you've got to do that piece. So when you have a lot of moving pieces like that in one transaction that occurred, right? That would be an area that we would need a journal entry. Okay. So again, journal entries, if we go to our little new icon here, click journal entry. You always want to date the journal entry to the date that the transaction or whatever occurred. You also could do it like for year-end journal entries are going to be obviously December 12/31. Okay. Now, journal entries that your accountants could be doing for you are going to be depreciation journal entries. So you own assets that need to depreciate and they need to put that in, right? And that adjusts your balance sheet and your profit and loss to match the tax return. Those would be journal entries that your accountant's going to do. Yeah, there's very few journal entries that you do. Some people do them for transfers and stuff like that, but with QuickBooks Online and the integration feature, you don't need to do that because the transactions are going to tie together. Okay. So for general purposes, obviously we're going to name this year end entry. And then I'm going to do a depreciation entry. And as you can tell, depreciation is apparently not an account that we have in here. So let's enter this. And I usually do it as an other expense, so it kind of sticks out. And then depreciation. Okay, so we're gonna say that we had a car that we bought for 30,000 and that it depreciates over 5 years. So I divide it by 5. So 6,000 would be my depreciation roughly. Obviously, these are fast numbers, okay? And then under accumulated, which goes on your balance sheet. I'm gonna have to add accumulated depreciation too. It would be 6,000 because journal entries have to be balanced on each side, meaning the dollar amounts have to be the same for the total line at the bottom. Okay. Now this could be that then I'm gonna have dues and subscriptions that I forgot about that I paid personally for 1,200 bucks. And then I'm gonna have meals and entertainment that I paid personally for another 1,000. And then we'll do office supplies for 500. Okay, and then this total down here then would be owners investment because I invested $2,700 in my business this year because this was the difference between these three transactions to make sure that these two bottom line items tied out. Okay, and then I'm going to hit save and close. Now, if you do depreciation on a monthly basis, you can make this a reoccurring transaction. So journal entry, make reoccurring because your depreciation would be a fixed dollar amount every month. That would make your P&Ls more accurate on a monthly basis versus just doing it at the end of the year. Some people don't even know what their depreciation is, or they're going to do accelerated depreciation. So that changes things. And then again, that would be a journal entry that your accountant is going to give you to put in at the end of the year to adjust what was in QuickBooks to match and tie out to the tax returns. Okay. Any questions about journal entries, when we use them, how to do it? And again, your fast toggle between them is going to be here. You can name them whatever you want in the journal entry number. Like you can type words in here. And then obviously you can see it becomes part of the name up here. So QuickBooks is trying to make it easier for you to track everything. Okay. We're going to spend quite a bit of time talking about receipts. Okay, so People really like the fact that QuickBooks Online can be opened on anything. It can be a computer, it can be your phone, it can be an iPad, it could be in your employees, depending on types of users you have them set up. Okay. One of the features people really like about it is that it talks about how you can take a picture of your receipts or attach attachments and not need to worry about it later. Okay. Well, this is true and false at the same time. All right. Yes. Can we add receipts? Absolutely. All right. Do we have to do something with it once we add the receipts? Yeah, that's the problem. Okay. So underneath here, we go back into our transaction tab where we spend 95% of our time. Okay. And up here, you'll see there's banking, apps, and receipts. Receipts is going to be where transactions are. Now, this could be things that you're loading. So upload from your computer. It could be in your Google Drive. It could be an email that you're forwarding. Okay. If your employees have taken a picture of a receipt, it's going to sit in for review tab and be right down here. Now, what's important about this if your employees take a picture of a receipt is that it's readable, legible. The receipt's not manhandled. Tell them to do it right away. Okay. Usually those are gas receipts that I see a lot with employees, gas receipts, because those are probably the ones that get lost the most. Okay. And then obviously if you've had receipts and reviewed them, then they're going to show here and again, still be in the system. Okay. But they'll be actually categorized somewhere. So it's really important that you can see those. All right. So now I have a couple pictures on our sheet here. Let's go down to receipts. So let's see here. So this is what it'll look like. See how it has a tiny little picture next to a date? If you click on this, it brings it up and makes it real big. So you can actually see it. This will be what the screen will look like. So you can see it. So again, it's important that it's readable. Doesn't, and what you can see that they tried to make sure they take a picture as close to it as possible, which is totally fine. And then you will then have to put whatever's on this invoice into the wizard to actually get it loaded. Okay. So this one was Firehouse Subs. What account? It's going to tell you it was a Visa card ending in, and then show you the last four of the account number, right? And then payment date should show you on here 5/30. And then this would be office meals because they went out for a business meeting. You don't have to put a description, but I put Firehouse Subs and then a memo. Okay. And then you would hit save and next. And it'll prompt you through till the next screen opens. Okay. So over here, oops, over here, that would be the ones that would be for review. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take a picture of one for us and see how fast it loads for us so that we can actually see how this works. Okay. I will tell you, if you guys use a mobile version versus the version we've been going on here, it does look a little bit later. It looks a little bit different. It's simpler for all educational purposes because it's on a lot smaller of a screen, so you can only do so much. You can categorize from it, you can load receipts from it, you can view reports. You don't have as much of the customization, obviously. Let's see here. And I'm just going to take a picture of like a business card or something, not anything important here. And then snap a receipt. That's what it says on your phone. Perfect. All right, so it is loading the receipt from my phone right now so we can see. And I'll refresh the screen as soon as I get the little check mark. I'm going to imagine it's pretty instant for this to happen. Hey, there it is. So you'll see here, if I click on it, there's the picture I took. Like I said, I told you guys I was doing a business card. And you can fill out all the information like we showed on the screen and hit save and next. So I have to at least select something. I'm going to just do Huntington because that's our bank account in here. And we'll put today as the transaction date. And then here's your category down here. I'm going to say advertising and marketing for $1. And then you'll see it creates it and then create expense. So now that goes from the for reviewed to the reviewed tab. But your history is still here. So you can always undo it if something happens or you think there's a duplicate. And that would kick it back into the for review tab, obviously. If you want to upload from the computer, these would be things that you might have. A statement. Maybe. Oh, hold on. It's probably in my review tab. Let's see here. Yep. And then here it is based on what you loaded. And as you can see, it's trying to figure out an amount, where it's going, what it's doing. You know, it's trying to help you, even if it's not accurate. So you do still have to check all of this information, because on a receipt, yeah, it could be really easy to read if the receipt is legible. But if a receipt's been mangled, it might be harder to read. And you know, as we all know, that heat thermal paper, after a while, it's very dingy, very light, and very hard to read. So they always encourage you to make photocopies and stuff. Well, this eliminates you wasting a tree and allows you to sync it in here. And then it ties to your transaction. And then again, if you look back at it, you have all that detail. Okay. I would recommend using this receipt portal, whether you upload it or take a picture, for questionable transactions, like we've talked about, things that the IRS could come back at you for. Best example I give is, like, I shop at Aldi's. I should never go down the aisle of shame, but I do. And they had a laminator there, and I needed one in my office pretty bad. So I ended up buying a laminator at Aldi's and laminating sheets and all that kind of stuff. And when I put it in my QuickBooks, obviously it's Aldi's, and Aldi's is a grocery store and the receipts don't give a ton of detail. So I kept that receipt because it would be questionable, and I obviously bought a laminator with it. So it's a legit office expense, but could be something that they would question later. Questionable charges vary based on your industry and what you're doing. Obviously, as an office accounting firm, I have a lot of office supplies that I buy, between paper and ink and all that kind of stuff. I have a very little Lowe's, Home Depot charges that I should be doing, right? So those would be questionable charges as well. If you are in cosmetology, you have a ton of salon centric and those types of products that you would need to be buying in order to function as a business. I, as a tax accountant, would not have those as expenses, right? So it varies based on your industry on what would be considered a questionable expense. You definitely want to keep at least those receipts. If you keep all of them, I just match them to where I spent the money. So if it came through a bank statement, I tie the receipt to the bank statement. If it came through on a credit card, I tie the receipt to the credit card. We do that for all our nonprofits to make sure we're collecting receipts for everybody that has credit cards. There's even an explanation sheet for some of the charges, especially in the nonprofit world, that ties into grant expenditures, you know, that I need to know about to make sure they get applied to the proper grants, you know, stuff like that. So lots of moving pieces when it comes to the receipt world, but definitely something I recommend keeping. There's no harm, no foul to keep them all inside of QuickBooks, because if you got audited, this is going to be the first thing that the auditor wants, is your QuickBooks software, because that would be what you tell them you keep it in, and then your bank statements or credit card statements. That's it, round one of what they would be looking for. So I always keep all of the above. If you are leaving banks, make sure you download your data or keep your data or put it in here, you know, those types of things, because you don't want to have to pay for them later if you have the opportunity to get it. Okay. Any questions about the receipts? Perfect. Okay. So we're going to move on. We'll talk about sales tax. So sales tax is something that we have not actually set up in the QuickBooks subscription we're working in. So we're going to have to do that first. So let's go up into our accounts and settings. And I think our sales tax is under our advanced settings, but let's take a peek if it'll load for us today. Let's see here. Checking in sales first. Let's look under advanced. And if you move from desktop to online and you have sales tax already set up, it should transfer and automatically turn on for you, just so that you know. It doesn't show the sales tax here. So let's do. Oh. Oh. Okay, so maybe it's inside of our sales portal here. Taxes, there we go, sales tax. So over here you have in your black bar of never ending accounts, you have taxes and we have sales tax. And then obviously they have an automatic sales tax calculator, and then they have one where you could set it up manually. I personally prefer to set it up manually. The only reason for that is because if you do the automatic, it's going to do it by geolocation. Okay. And so what it's going to do is it's going to say a percentage of the sales tax just goes generally to the state of Ohio. And then the additional percentage to get to whatever the county sales tax is goes to the county. And so when you mark it paid, it creates double layered transactions that you have to make sure you select, and can make it a little bit harder for you to factor when you're looking at it inside of the gateway, because QuickBooks Online, I want to specify this very hard, does not actually pay your sales tax when you mark it paid. It only houses the data you need to actually pay sales tax. To pay it, you either have to do it over the phone or do it on the Ohio Business Gateway. It does not mark, it's not paid inside of QuickBooks. Okay, it just tracks it. So for training purposes, it doesn't give me an option other than to do automatic at this point. So we're going to do automatic. It has our business address because we've already filled this information out. And then we're going to say that we do it monthly, but these are your filing frequencies. Some people are twice a year, some are annually, but we're going to be monthly because we do enough of it. And then I don't do any other sales tax in any other states. So it is Ohio Department of Taxation. That would be who I would be paying. So we want to take a look now that it's through our little wizard page. Okay. And then down below here are going to show things that you've had. If you have a return, this will be what it looks like. So you'll be able to see, excuse me, the list of transactions, invoices, activity that's happened, total tax, everything like that. And then obviously if you file before the 23rd, you get that little bit of discount. So you're going to have an adjustment you need to enter to make sure that this report ties out. The goal is that what you collect and what you pay equal each other. If they don't, then your reports on QuickBooks tend to get a little sticky, meaning that your balance sheet will say you owe sales tax liability that you don't owe. Okay. And if that's the case, then something could be set up improperly in here, or maybe you charge somebody the wrong county or the wrong rate. And that's the good news about doing the automatic, is that it's going to do it based on address that you put on the invoice to the customer. Now that we've turned on sales tax, let's go look back at our invoicing because we're going to create one. Okay. So if we go back up to sales, let's create an invoice. Now you'll see we have a column here that says tax. Maybe not everything that you have is taxable. Okay. Service wise, you'd have to know which ones are and which ones aren't, obviously. I'm going to do consulting and say I do 100, and I'm going to say it's taxable because I want it to populate based on location. So if I want to add a rate, because I want to do it not based on location. Oops, sorry, I didn't know I was doing it. You're going to say a single rate, and I could say Summit County. Okay. The agency is still Ohio Department of Taxation, but the rate is 6.75%. So now it adds $6.75, and I can change that. You know, if you only work in one county, then setting it up that way is great. If you work in multiple counties, then you would maybe want based on location so you don't forget to switch it, because this would be where you switch it. Okay. So I'm going to hit save and close, and then we'll go back over to our sales tax report here. Now we should have something that's populating in there for us to look at. Nope, because it's not marked paid. Okay, hold on a second. Under invoice. Do it. Let me refresh here. Okay, so now it's gonna let me receive payment. And I'm gonna change this to, this might be part of the problem too, because it dated all the way back to December, which was when we were creating the journal entries. So we'll date it today. And I'm gonna hit save and close. And then now let's go back down to sales tax here, taxes, sales tax. Oh, it's still not populating. Because it didn't actually save my received payment here. Okay, save and close. All right, so now it's saved it. Try this a third time. Third time's a charm, guys. Nope, it still isn't populating. So I'm not sure there, maybe there's a lag between when you mark something paid and when it populates in here, because we definitely have that invoice now dated based on April 1st to April 30th. And this should constantly be adjusting with you marking stuff paid or receiving payments, because that's how you factor this number, is that based on the tax you collected is the tax you should pay. But for some reason with us marking it paid, it still isn't prompting it, and you can see here it even says we've deposited it. So maybe it's a day or so delayed. But that really stinks, because if you wait and mark everything paid right before you're going to file, I would be worried that this would be inaccurate. So definitely want to pay attention to that. For purposes of like seeing what it looks like with information in here, a county, total sales, taxable sales, and then the tax amount. And you'll see all these, and all these numbers inside of here are clickable to open up whatever is creating the data inside of there. Okay. When you have more than one county, you can see all the different counties. And then you could say which month you're looking at, and you can see June, May, April, March, February, January, that type of thing. And then obviously you can edit stuff inside of there as well. And then you'll be able to see if you have your payment history. So your payment history will populate down here where you see the first due date. Once you've made one paid, you'll be able to scroll farther down and be able to see it. And you also then get an option up here, like a little bar that populates here that will say paid and unpaid. And you can pull different reports from here, directly from here. Your liability report, those types of things. If you pull the liability report, it should show you the same thing. We don't have anything that's populating yet, but it will show you the same type of thing that we're seeing on this screen here. So these reports look similar to the ones in desktop. How you get to them is different, but the tracking and that all should tie out. The numbers should still match. It's really important that you mark them paid, mark these sales tax paid, in order to keep this number accurate on your balance sheet. Because when you have sales tax, then it populates on your balance sheet. So if we go over here and go back to reports, and we look at balance sheet, there's your $6.75 that you owe in sales tax. So it shows up on here. So if you don't actually file these reports inside of QuickBooks Online to mark them paid, then they won't ever come off of this balance sheet. Therefore, if somebody looks at it, they're gonna be like, oh, you owe a lot of money to the state of Ohio. Like, what happened? And you're gonna be like, no, I've paid it all. You need to clear it off of here to make sure that your reports stay accurate. Any questions about sales tax?
And you did see the question, right?
Yep, I'm looking right now.
Okay.
For clarification purposes regarding income for retail sales that have sales tax, would you please show how it would look on the profit and loss report? Thank you. So sales tax doesn't really show on the profit and loss. The reason for that is that in Ohio, we are what do they call it? There's a specific term for it, and my brain is blanking at the moment. But we are just a holding state, meaning you get the money and you pay it right back out. So that expense should be zero. So when you have it where you're just charging everybody the sales tax included in your sales number, meaning that it's being deposited, then when you pay the sales tax, you should be deducting it from your sales number so that then you have an actual number of what you had in sales, because sales tax isn't an income to you and is not an expense to you. It's a wash. Okay. When you use QuickBooks Online and you use their sales tax module and you're not tracking it in your own POS software or anything that you're running credit cards and stuff in, which would probably be where some of you might be doing it based on industry, it's going to show inside of QuickBooks on balance sheet, not the P&L. Once you mark it paid, this number gets lower, but then obviously it zeroes out on the other side. So you don't ever see sales tax income versus sales tax expense. If you chose to want to add those items and do the manual entry for that, you can. I just would not probably recommend it. But it depends on if you're using the module inside of here or if you have another way that you're getting it. Quiana, does that answer your question? You're probably using it inside of the software that's doing it for the salon purposes, probably less than what you're doing inside of QuickBooks. Correct. It's on the balance sheet, not the P&L. Now, I will tell you, if this sales tax number is really big at the end of the year, your accountant's going to ask you about it. Because remember, I told you from class 1 that if something isn't right on your balance sheet, then something isn't right on your P&L. Okay. So if this number is really big, this might be something that they end up having to do an entry with you at the end of the year to adjust in a journal entry to make sure that you can prove that it's all paid and everything like that. But again, I just want to specify, you do not pay sales tax through QuickBooks, truly pay it. You pay it on the Ohio Business Gateway. Any other questions about the sales tax stuff? Okay. Let's go back up to our little cheat sheet here. Oops. Let's talk about reoccurring transactions. Okay. So a reoccurring transaction is things that don't change, that come month after month. It could be rent. It could be a car payment. It could be a loan payment if you have like a line of credit or something like that. It could be car insurance or property insurance or liability insurance. Those don't change very often. It could be health insurance if you offer it for your employees, any of those types of things. But you want to set up a reoccurring transaction on things that don't change. Now you could do reoccurring transactions that are expenses, and you can do reoccurring invoices that are income. Okay. So we're going to look at both of these. So if you want to create an invoice, so let's start there. Let's go up here to our little sales guy and go into invoices. You want to create an invoice. Right in the middle of the screen at the bottom, it says make reoccurring. Now, why would we make an invoice reoccurring? So for example, I personally pay my IT firm every month. They manage my antivirus, my backing up software, and then all my computers. So they charge me per device. Okay. It's the same dollar amount unless I add a computer month after month after month after month, which I don't obviously add a computer every month. So they have me on reoccurring invoices, meaning that it sends me an invoice on the first every month, like clockwork. I can mark it paid, go from there. Okay. They don't have to get in and physically create it. So if you do consulting, like I do, where I charge small businesses a flat amount each month, I can set up reoccurring invoice that it's going to create the invoice every month until further notice, basically. Okay. So how do we do that? So I'm going to type in, we'll do John. And I'm going to say I want to make this invoice reoccurring. So then it gives me more options and it's going to automatically send the email. Always include charges. And then for training, I'm going to use my email because obviously I don't have an email for this so-called John person. And then I want it to go monthly on the first day of the month. Starting date can be on May 1st with no end date, or by or after. You can set an end date. Okay. And then what am I billing him for? Consulting, which is his monthly package, and his monthly package is $350 a month. Oops. And then his package is not taxed. So I want to make sure that that box is not. I'm going to hit save. So instead of saving the invoice, did you notice it said save template? Okay. So then now what do I do if he were to not be a client anymore? So if I click my little gear icon up here, you have a reoccurring transactions tab up here. There's his reoccurring transaction. I can edit it. Items you could do reoccurring transactions for are sales sheets. Like if you're in a restaurant and every day you got to do a deposit based on cash, checks, credit card, you could have a sales sheet in here that would be reoccurring. Again, journal entries would be something else you can make reoccurring. But anything you set up as a reoccurring transaction is going to show in this list and you can edit it at any point. Use, duplicate, pause, skip, delete, all of that. All right, I'm going to pause right here before we look at the next thing we can make reoccurring and how we do it. As I told you, we would get another little break. So let's go ahead and take our 10-minute break now. We'll come back at 11:10. Again, if you have any questions, use this time to drop them in the chat. I'll start with those first. And we are on pace probably to be done like 11:30, 11:40, so a few minutes early. So we'll have plenty of time for maybe some individual questions if you want, and we'll briefly talk about the next class, okay? So I'll see you guys at 10:10.
Are we on break again? I had to step away.
Yes, we're on break.
Okay, all right.
we covered between our last break and this break, guys? Any questions? I don't see anything in the chat, but I want to give anybody a last minute opportunity. Okay. So we're going to continue then to talk about reoccurring transactions. So let's go up and do a journal entry, and let's make that a reoccurring transaction. And honestly, I'm going to look back at one of our older ones. And I'm going to, let's see here. And then I'm going to make this reoccurring. And again, see how it pops up here. I want to make it monthly, but I want this one to come in on the 15th. And then again, the start date, I'm going to go backwards and have no end date. I'm going to hit save. Oh, I have to name. Let's see here. Cogs. That's what I'm going to name that. Oh, it has to be today's date or after. Let's see here. So then we'll date it then May 15th. And again, now you'll see there's 2 listed here. Okay. Now, if you have, like I said, if you do a sales reoccurring transaction, you probably will have it actually auto-populate on its own. You're probably going to come in here and you're going to click use. And use means you're going to pull it up and then fill it out and then hit save and close to actually add it into the QuickBooks. Okay. That would be if you're obviously doing daily deposits, those types of things that you're tracking on a regular basis. Otherwise, the whole point of a reoccurring transaction is to let it just continually create and add the data for you so you don't have to, but have the ability to make any adjustments to those transactions as things change. But again, the things you want to use for reoccurring transactions are going to be car payments, loan payments, rent, invoices for customers if they don't change, things that don't change. Okay. Any questions about the reoccurring transactions? All right, then let's kick back to our thing. So now we're going to take a peek at the miscellaneous tools, which I had kept till the very end so that we could talk about it. So on miscellaneous tools inside of QuickBooks, one of the things that they're starting to change and or kind of dive into is the fact that they don't maybe have the best support options right now for people. Meaning they don't have a call center anymore that you can call into, okay? So sometimes you get assigned an expert, which would be under my expert on your screen, okay? Or if you hit help, you can put in a ticket and they will call you. But obviously that then requires you to answer numbers that maybe you don't know, which I'm one of those people that does not do that. So that is hard for me. You also have the ability to chat with somebody under the help task. So don't hesitate to use the chat feature. To be honest, I find it to be some of the easiest stuff to do. Even if they're just sending me to a robot at first, but they do actually send you to a person, okay? And they try to help you if they can. If they can't, then obviously you got to work a little bit farther. But one of the other tools that I use a lot with my clients is this accountant tool. So there's 2 sides to this tool. There is that you have an accountant added in already, and then you can send tax documents to them from inside of here, bank statements, receipts, any of that stuff you can load in here. And they have access to it to do their job, which it might be reconciliation or stuff like that, pending what you're doing with your accountant, okay? You also have it where you can have QuickBooks be your bookkeepers. They're a little bit expensive when it comes to some of it. They don't meet with you every month, but they will do the categorizing and then obviously match it to the bank statements. I have found that they make normal basic mistakes as a human because it's actually a human doing the bookkeeping. Okay. But this would be how you would set that package up. It's an additional service offering that QuickBooks offers. But this is how you would get the information to them. So it's kind of cool to see it that you can use it with just your accountant that you have, or obviously if you decide to go to a different service offering with QuickBooks, those types of things that you have it, okay? So if you add an accountant here, it brings you back to your managed users so that you can actually add the person in there. I've been invited, remember I invited myself, but I haven't accepted the invitation. That's why I don't show when it comes to that tab about doing the accountant, okay? So that's one of the miscellaneous tools. Another miscellaneous tool that we're going to talk about is classifications. So classifications aren't in every level of QuickBooks Online, obviously, but they are in the version that we are messing around with, which is the middle of the road. What you would use classifications for is if you have more than one service offering or you're running more than one business, meaning you have like a DBA that goes under the same business. If you do rentals, this would be a good way to do your rental property because you have to have your expenses sorted based on category or based on physical property. So that would be something that you could use it for. Or if you have multiple locations, okay? So I like classifications because when you classify something, it puts it in its own column when you pull a profit and loss report, as long as you pull it by classification. And so if you do that, then it will show all your chart of accounts that you're using. So all the expense accounts and income accounts, but then it's going to show you by whatever your classifications are, whether it's location, property, those types of things. So you have the ability to see an entirety picture, and then you have the ability to see snippets. Okay. So I'm going to show you guys one of my clients that gave me permission to show it so you can see what the classifications would look like. Because obviously we didn't build any of the classifications. So I want to show you what it does. Let's see here. And hopefully QuickBooks will work with us here. It's running so slow. I'm so sorry. And under here, you go to reports. Maybe. Incognito window, so it should pull up. Since QuickBooks is being slow. Yeah. So if you go into your profit and loss like you normally would, manipulating is an ability how we would pull the transactions by class. So if we do, and then see where it says classes right here, and then you'll see that he has this classification and this classification. Things got put in that were not classified, which would need to be reclassified, and then you have a total column. So anything you didn't classify would stick out like a sore thumb for so you could make corrections unless you had an unclassified transaction side. Okay. That then shows you same accounts, what's being used in each, and you can see profitability by project, location, whatever it might have been. Okay. So then let's go back out and I'm going to show you how you set up classes. Okay. So classes is not something that unless you're using it in desktop version that you automatically get when you switch to QuickBooks Online. You have to usually turn it on. Where in desktop, you do have to turn it on originally, but like I said, if you port up into QuickBooks Online, it does come on automatically. Okay. So if you decided, oh, I should really do this classification because I work in 2 locations or those types of things, we definitely want to pay attention to it. So from here, if you go up into your gear icon and you go to accounts and settings, and then under expenses here, or no, is it sales? Nope, maybe it's advanced. where did I find? Nope, that doesn't have it. Expenses doesn't have it. Payments does not have it. Why? There it is. Categories under advanced. I was right. It is under advanced, and you have to turn it on. Okay, and you could do by location too. We're just going to stick with classes. Location and classes is the same type of thing when it comes to QuickBooks. So you don't necessarily need both on unless you're trying to double see data, meaning there's layers into your accounting. Okay. So you would click the pencil, turn it on. I've turned it on. Okay. Now, what does that do when you turn it on? So if we go back up to our transaction tab here, we'll go into bank transaction. Now that I've turned it on, if I click on an expense now, it adds class. Like this box right here was not here when we were doing all that stuff before. Okay. So if I were to enter Acme and I were to say that this is owner's pay, not owner's investment. Sorry about that. Owner's pay. That's what Acme would be. And I click add. It didn't warn me that I didn't use the classes because I don't have any classes set up. But once you actually set them up, it will tell you that you need to add a class. So if we go up to the gear icon here, there should be, if I go to all lists, here's your classes here. And then let's create new. And we're going to call this class Akron, just to make it easy. And then I'm going to call a class Canton. Okay, and so I have two classes now. So they're here. Again, you can edit them from here, make them inactive if you decide not to use them, something changes, you can rename them, all that fun stuff. If you go back to your transaction tab now, and then let's hit this one. Big, what is it? Big dip in. Big in. Big dip. Okay, add that because he's not in there. Meals and entertainment. And then class-wise, we want to do Akron. Nope, I don't want to recreate it. I want you to populate the one I have. Okay, hold on. Maybe I need to refresh since it's not populating those we just created. Definitely tell QuickBooks is lagging a little bit today, so. There it is. So see, now they populate, and then I can click add. And then if I do another one, you can see it auto-populated that one. If I delete this out of here, let's see if I can get it to warn us that we don't have a class. That's a rule. We don't want to worry about that. Nope, it doesn't warn us for not having a class. So there has to be a setting, because I have it set up for some clients where it warns you and you can't enter a transaction without clicking it twice without setting up a class. So there's another settings inside of there once you get used to using them that we would turn on in order to do that. So that it prompted you to always put in a class so that you don't have the unclassified category unless you want it on purpose. Okay. So those are kind of all the miscellaneous tools inside of QuickBooks. Obviously, from day one, we started with building the file to implementing or integrating our bank accounts to reconciling to categorizing to the customization features to journal entries, you know, workers, all that kind of fun stuff. Do we have any questions about anything we've covered today? Anything covered prior? This is everything we were going to cover today so far. So I want to give a minute for questions.
Hi, Ann.
Yes.
Hi, this is Kiana. First of all, thank you for being so thorough. That you have been excellent over the past 3 weeks. I really enjoyed your presentations. My question regarding the classes. Currently, based on my DBAs, of course, I have different bank accounts. So using the import right? When I sync my bank account to QuickBooks Online, can I do it on the various accounts, or do I have to have QuickBooks Online for each individual bank account?
Are they all getting filed under one entity at the end of the year?
Yes,
Like one tax return?
yes. One
So then this
EIN.
would be okay, so this would be a prime example of why you would probably want to use classes so that you could track each DBA's activity. But when you import, you can import them all as long as all the accounts are created. And you just want to make sure when you're downloading it, you know which account you clicked on to download, or if you have them automatically synced, you can do that too, obviously. So that when you import it, you select the proper account in that transaction. Because like when you get to the import screen here, so gear icon, import data, and you go to bank account,
Mhm.
once you've selected a file, remember it brings you to the next screen that gives you a drop down to select the bank account if it's already in your account registry. And you just have to
Right.
make sure you select the proper account in that a chart of accounts to make sure it's integrating to the proper spot. But yeah, then if you set each DBA up as a class name, then when you categorize that specific bank account, all those would get categorized under that class, and then you could see what each entity is doing, and then at the end of the year your accountant gets one total from that total column for tax purposes for you. And then you spend more to have that feature inside of QuickBooks, but it saves you from having multiple QuickBooks accounts to manage. Because the downfall of QuickBooks Online is that one company per account, right? But because they're all
Right.
filed under one EIN, it is one company. So that's why I would say that would work for you. As far as instead of setting up multiple accounts, where QuickBooks Desktop allows you to create as many companies as you want for one download on your computer. You know what I mean? You just have to toggle in
Right.
and out of them. Online doesn't do that.
You said online does not do that?
It does not. You would have to have individual accounts at $30 a pop. And then you could have it set up where you can see it like mine does, where you have like a drop down list. Let's see if I can get it back to where I log in and I can show you guys like what accountants see. Because we work with more than one company. I probably have to log out and log back in. But the classes, I think it's like $90 a month for the one to have it with the class, which if you, depending how many DVAs you have at $30 a pop, that's 3 companies that you could run through using the classes as long as it all has the same EIN. If you set up multiple accounts, then you get a list like this because you can still use your same email address for each account. You don't have to create another email address for it, but you get a tool that drops down like this to show you all your companies.
Yeah.
So that's why I would recommend spend the extra money to have the classes, but then you don't have multiple subscriptions you're getting in and out of.
Right. Right. And then of
But yeah,
course if
it's expensive either way, sadly.
okay. And then just for performance purposes, if I want to track to see how much I brought in for spa services versus salon services versus retail services, I could make classes for that as well, correct?
You wouldn't even need to make classes for that unless those are the different DBAs you're working with. Those would just be different income categories. So it would say sales, and then it would say salon services, nail
Mhm.
services, retail, and the list goes on, right?
Right.
So
Well, the
those would be
retail,
in your chart of accounts, not necessarily by class.
okay, the retail is a DBA. Those are DBAs, the
Okay,
retail.
so then you would want them by class. If those are the DBAs, then that's what you want by class. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No, not a problem. And then I'm gonna put up here, guys, the contact information for me. I know a chunk of everybody has reached out from stuff we've done previous, and now that we're through the QuickBooks or through the tax deadline, I'll be able to do some of the individual meetings we have lined up and those types of things. So let's see here. me stop sharing this screen so that I can share my other screen. And then let's see here. And then Gwen, were you able to load that PowerPoint into the chat, or are we going to send it out email? How are we going to do that? Let's share my screen here. Share.
Normally she adds it to the chat. Um, um, I mean, she'll make sure she gets it to everybody that was logged on. We have everybody's email address.
Perfect. And then it looks like we have another question. Mary asks, how do I upload the file to import checks that are created in QuickBooks to our bank safety feature? I believe you just have to go in. Let me pull this up here. Let's see here. I don't want to log in with that username and password. Let's see about getting this logged in with this one. There's an export feature, and I think you can just export that list. And more banks are going into wanting that list. So let's see if they've critiqued this at all. Because Mary, you just have to put in the check numbers, dollar amount, and date and payee. Is that what your bank wants? I think it's a little bit different each bank. I'm trying to figure out exactly. QuickBooks is not working for me today. Let's see. This one. Can you guys still see the QuickBooks login on the new window? Okay, let's see here. So up here, the gear icon, it has export data. And then you don't want to do all dates. You might want to just do a custom date. And then you don't need all this information. You're probably just going to need the general ledger. It's going to have the information I would think that you need on here. So there's that way. And then let's look inside of, if you're cutting checks, you would be inside the bill portal. So let's look under expenses, go into bill. Under your paid bill here is a list that you can download right here too. So you could select, we only have one, so there's not going to let me select many, but you could select however many you had just paid and then click this little export to Excel, and that should pull down the stuff that you're looking for.
And it looks like Gwen has put the PDF files on the chat. So thanks, Gwen.
Perfect. Any other questions, guys? There's my contact information again for you guys. Next week's class is all around nonprofits. We're going to be working inside of the nonprofit QuickBooks, which is a little bit different. The terminology for nonprofits is a little bit different. Some of the information we're going to be talking about, which is like they're getting donations and the giving and all that kind of stuff, is all going to revolve around nonprofits. If there's anything else you need for the QuickBooks, just the normal usage of QuickBooks, obviously feel free to reach out to Ed, those guys at Canton Score, me directly. And then again, next week is going to be designed for the nonprofits. Obviously, even if you're not a nonprofit, you're welcome to get in on the class. But we have, the nonprofits have specifically asked for what we're going to cover in the next class. And then it's been kind of exciting to see the new portal that QuickBooks has built for nonprofits. They have different pricing that goes into what they're doing, but then also it is designed to sync with their softwares and some customization features, which is going to be nice. Yvonne, it looks like there's like a little download arrow to pull the PDF of the PowerPoints out of the chat.
Hey, Mary, I see your question. If you're seeing our emails, you would have been. I think we put it. I think we sent out like all of them where you could register for each of them individually. But so check to see if you already have it. If not, we can probably send you one, I think. Probably emailed. Yeah. Yeah, it would come from it would be a score email. Um let me s-
Yeah, I think I saw one this morning in my inbox because I'm on your guys' chains.
okay.
So the one just went
Chances
out
are
this morning.
you've already gotten it. Let me just see here. That might have been just a panelist discussion. So,
Okay.
Gwen, you still there by any chance? We'll work.
Yes, I sent it to the panelists and then I sent it to everyone.
Okay, this for next week.
Oh, I'm sorry. No,
Yeah, there's a couple people that are looking for the invitation for next week's nonprofit.
okay. Well, we sent out an email on that. Oh, I guess it was
We're going to
towards the
send
end
out
of
another
March.
one. We're going to
Yeah.
send out another one between now and next Tuesday, right? Last
Yeah,
chance kind of thing.
yeah, exactly. And you can always go to the website.
Well, good idea. And that would be
Score,
canton.score.org.
it's score.org/Canton.
Okay.
And then
Just mhm.
go ahead.
And just click on the exact wording is
Local workshops, right?
it's right. It's local workshops. And then you'll see our workshop calendar. And
So
you click on the workshop and the registration link will be there.
And then Suzanne, Gwen did attach last week's and this week's PowerPoint, I think. I see the expert.
Expert, but I can attach last week's if you
Can you
like.
attach the intermediate? Because I think I had to make a correction to it, and I don't know that it went back out to those guys for last
Okay,
week's.
let's see. Okay.
To go to our SCORE website, it's score.org/Canton and click on local workshops, right?
That's right.
Or you're going to be sending out a last chance to register as well, right?
I will do that. Yeah. But
Okay.
and I'll go one step better. I'll send to each of the attendees for this workshop, I'll send you a link to register. So you don't have to search for it.
Okay. That would be
Perfect.
great. All right. Well, I don't see any little red numbers down in the chat feature, so we must be questioned out.
No, not a problem at all.
All right. And
Those of you
hey,
that I'll
and
see next week, awesome. We'll see you then.
all right. And thank you. And thank all of you that logged on. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.